today, for putting up with our questions. As interesting as they are, we sincerely appreciate your time with us. Thank you. One of our newest committees will be introduced to you shortly, and that's our Public Education Committee. This committee is new in concept. It's been the subject of a recent board discussion to kind of put a finer point on the direction that we want to take. And I want to take the time now to introduce our newest committee chair, Wylie from Mendocino County, who's going to share with you some views of our new Public Education Committee, and she's going to be soliciting your volunteer support for her committee work as well. Kathy?
Thank you. Thank you. Judge Jar, you're a tough act to follow, so you guys bear with me. I'm tasked this morning with letting you know about the newest initiative we have on the CGJA board, which is it's consistent with our public education and outreach mission, our primary mission of our association. And as you all know, and I'm sure you've taken the training, we do a very comprehensive training program for sitting grand jurors. But the discussion has been held over the last year, maybe two, about how can we do more outreach to the public at large about what the civic function of the grand jury is. We feel as an association that that's lacking at this point, and among other discussions, we talked about using some sort of public outreach as a tool for recruiting, if nothing else. So what I'd like to do today is spend like maybe 5 or 10 minutes telling you about ideas we have, and then going through each of these ideas sort of step by step and soliciting input from you. And hopefully we'll have a little time for questions at the end. So with that, we had, I don't know, about an hour discussion yesterday morning again in our board retreat about, you know, what is this beast going to look like? Who's going to do it? How's it going to survive? How are we going to get it out to the public? What is it? You know, and we came to some fairly unanimous consensus about what it looks like. So I wanted to try, my background is that I'm a high school teacher who went to the dark side and became a school administrator. And luckily I am very fortunate, got to retire at 55 and have been a CGJA junkie, just like most of you in the room, probably for the past 10 years. So with that in mind, if I had to ask you to choose today whether you thought we should do a program that's geared toward the high school population or towards the community college population, how many of you, by standing up, would vote for the high school population? Stand up. Okay, have a seat, thank you. And those of you that would vote for community college, stand up. Okay, you guys win. You also won in our board discussion last night, or yesterday morning. We had, it's tough, you know, there are advantages to both. The K-12 lends itself in a lot of ways to sort of a curriculum-based approach that's aligned to high school standards and could be sort of a lesson in a box that we could deliver to maybe senior civics teachers or something like that. Sort of a compact, here you go. And we thought, you know, civics teachers are going to like this because it would be aligned to standards so they can convince their principals and superintendents to let it into the classroom. And you all know, well, maybe you don't. In your senior year of high school now, you know, you have 185 school days and 1 semester of civics in your high school year. So you have about 90 hours of civics work in high school. That's why nobody knows that there's 3 branches of government. So the other thought there was, wow, you know, will civics teachers be able to afford an hour out of their 90 hours to talk about our subject? So we had a long discussion about that, and the upshot was, we thought, you know, really, those kids aren't ready for the information that we want to give them. They can't vote yet. They can't serve on a jury unless they're 18. They're just not ready to take the information in and use it in a way that we're trying to accomplish. So then we talked about the community college. And that seems the more direct route to the type of potential juror that we might recruit, as well as just sort of a more civic-minded brain, because they're out in the world, you know, competing and learning at a college level. So we sort of came up with the idea, by consensus again, and you saw it in the room today, that we're going to focus a product on a community college curriculum. Great. What's the product? That's a toughie. And that's where the committee's going to, I envision the committee doing all the work. You know, is it a PowerPoint that you ship to every college history teacher in California? Is it a fancy Google Doc that has embedded videos in it and questions and answers and a test up, you know? What is the product? Is it a video that we distribute statewide via our website, or do we have actual personal ambassadors in every county that agree that they're going to hit every community college civics teacher? So that's a place where I would like to solicit ideas from you. We have some now, and we do have probably a half dozen teachers who are interested in the product and have contacted me at various degrees over the course of the year when we started to talk about this. So I would just like to open it up right now. What are your ideas about what that deliverable looks like?
So if you have a question, a comment, if you'll raise your hand, I'll get the mic to you and we can proceed in that order.
Mary Ann, thank you very much. It's so appropriate because I have been mainstreaming on that idea all the way, given that I have a granddaughter who knows nothing about this.
Yes.
And 90% of the people I talk to don't even know what we do. Mm-hmm. I envision like a general meeting at the school where they can get extra credit, where you can come to an assembly hall and maybe just get firsthand information and more in-depth later on if that's the avenue that they're taking with their career. Or ask them to, if they do vote and they are registered, to sign up and try it out, because they have got all that computer skill that 90% of our group does not have, and that's our struggle. Right. Also, too, I'm envisioning in my own area, out of Yolo County, to do town hall meetings. And of course, our group, what do you call the group that supports us?
Chapter.
Thank you, because I'm brand new. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I want to.
Welcome. I want to be on the board.
Well, first of all, I want to increase our chapter size and use those people as the people to talk to the public. They're your next door neighbor. They're the lady you see at the grocery store, and let them tell you their personal experience.
Thank you. So are you saying, would you think that there are 2 different products then, one more classroom-based and one more chapter-based?
Exactly.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Hi, I'm a teacher and a techie geek, and...
Yay!
And coming from a student perspective in college, a lot of the students take their classes online. Mm-hmm. So I think there should be an online webinar type class that they can take. Also, PowerPoint presentation that can be given and kept at the library so that they can check it out and get some credit for, doing it and turning it into their teachers. and also given to the actual teachers. And I think giving it to the criminal justice department and the sociology department would be great departments to start with.
Thank you.
Next question is up here.
Okay.
In Fresno, we provide a similar thing to Fresno State University through the OSHA Lifelong Learning Institute. And I want to know how this is going to differ from what we're already presenting.
Great question. I was going to get to that, but since I got asked, we talked about the OSHA program. Jim Reagan brought that to CGJA, Jim and Jerry Louie, 5 years ago, maybe longer than that?
Longer.
And so we considered that curriculum, either in part or total, as the basis for whatever this product is that we developed. And it may be that we just fine-tune that OSHA curriculum and run with that. So we are definitely planning to somehow integrate that. Yes, in the back?
So,
Miss Karen, congratulations again.
Thanks so much. Now, this may be old news, and those who are in the room have a longer memory than I do. A gentleman from Marin County's grand jury did develop a curriculum for high school kids and for the OSHA program some 10 or 12 years ago, and it's been floating around out in the community. To my knowledge, it's been taught at least once to some high schoolers and at least once at OSHA. I don't know where it is. I know it can be found. We've got the brain power of Joanne Landy, who knows how to find anything in the world related to CGJA. But
And I know how to find Joanne.
And I just want to suggest that there is a developed curriculum. I'm not saying it's perfect, but we have something, there's a wheel out there that's already been running.
That's great. That's exactly the stuff I'm looking for, so thank you.
As far as public education, I think a threshold matter would be simply to distinguish the civil grand jury from the criminal grand jury, because when I told them when I was on the grand jury, they thought I was indicting people. So I think that's really important.
Thank you. We agreed with you yesterday morning.
I met a young lady who is on a sitting grand jury in Contra Costa County this year. She's a DVC student, and she came to our pre-selection orientation, and I encouraged her to continue, and she did get chosen. And she said she talked to her professors, her political science professors before, and told them what she wanted to do, and chose her classes accordingly so that she could be on the grand jury this year. And I saw her a few weeks ago, and she came to one of our chapter meetings, and she's really interested. So I think one of the ways to get this implemented is to get a hold of people like this and really encourage them to spread the word throughout their peer system. Also, I want to add, the first year I was on the grand jury in 2007, I think I went to the training, and most of the people on the Santa Cruz grand jury were California State or University of California students, including the foreperson. So it can be done, and it just needs to be put together.
Yeah. So just quickly, part of why I'm standing up here today is to solicit help or names of people just like the gal you talked about that would be interested in this. And the committee plan right now, my plan, is to advertise in the CGJA Journal November 15 deadline. Yes. And just set a conference call time so that we can have an initial committee meeting, and hopefully, if you know somebody who maybe isn't getting the journal or for whatever reason didn't get the word, give them my address and contact information, which you should find in your program, and ask them if they'd be interested in joining.
Kathy, I know you know this, and for those who still like to learn from the written book, this little book turns out to be a pretty good textbook for what we're trying to do. And I used this successfully at a couple of OSHA courses that I gave, and it works at pretty much any level, so it's something to keep in mind.
Thank
And
you.
I have many copies for sale, by the way.
You know, Jerry, that came right up. It was one of the first resources we talked about plagiarizing.
Copyrighted.
Al Witten from Placer County. I'm going to play the devil's advocate here because I'd like to figure out or ask what type of metric you're going to use for effectiveness and flip it back to, I believe that it would be more effective as a program in the high school where you can hit a higher percentage of individuals versus the community college. I question as to what percentage of the population in the community college or what percentage of the population of your student population you'd actually be achieving results from.
Yeah, super valid point. We had that, we did speak about that yesterday, and you know, it's a tough call because we have finite resources, right? Me at this point and whatever committee I can pull together, and we just have to use those resources the best that we can. And so the board consensus was let's shoot for community college, and then maybe down the road we back it up to the high school curriculum. In terms of the metric, I'm not sure how we're going to judge whether we are effective or not in giving the information. One of the ideas I had just with my teacher brain is to provide some sort of, you know, questionnaire, maybe true or false, I don't know, ABC questionnaire, test, something with a key to make it easy for those teachers, you know, because they don't need to develop a test too. But something that would be at the end of the course, which would solicit feedback so that we would know, are we actually achieving anything here? Or are we just sort of, you know, singing to the choir? What are we doing here? So I appreciate that question because it's really on my mind too. Are we going to be effective? Is it worth our time?
Next question.
Sir.
I'm Dave Singh from Contra Costa, last year's grand jury. As I see it, I think it's more a question of awareness. So I will be more concentrating on that, spreading the word, than getting to the depth of a curriculum, because that would really be of interest to people who are doing law enforcement, law, whatever. And I think because the awareness is so little, we all know that. For example, if I talk to my children or grandchildren, civil grand jury, the only most important word they see is grand, and the other word is civil. They probably think we don't argue or something.
Right.
But both of them are wrong. And so really, if you're aiming at the community, you really need either videos which can be targeted at anybody, schools, colleges, community. And if they were available, and in particular, if you could pick out some case studies or where grand jury has done something, then follow it through, see what happened. Then the relevance of civil grand jury may become more sort of obvious.
Concrete.
That's how I would actually just, and then you do all the other things too, using media of every description. But it's the awareness that just isn't there.
Right.
Because if I'm a citizen, I have no idea what civil grand jury does. I may ask, well, do we need it? Well, the only way we can demonstrate is, have we done anything?
Right.
That's how I would do it.
Thank you.
Next question.
And with a little experience in all these, I've served on an OSHA program. Our grand jury did an essay contest with high school students, and we had high school students apply. But we had no way to follow up to know how effective it was. After I retired, I taught 16 years part-time at Diablo Valley College, political science. There is very, very little information in any of the books about the grand jury. So having some sort of a video or other program that would attract today's young people, I think is highly desirable. But you have to get the cooperation of teachers, particularly the political science, history, and sociology teachers. But I think it's time for us to do this. Thank you.
Diane, get her contact information.
Thank you.
Next question.
All of this is, something we struggled with the whole time I was on the board. And that is, which of these myriad opportunities are we going to glom onto? Certainly awareness, public awareness generally is lacking, and we preach to the choir when we say go out and talk to your groups. I thought, if we could just have 15 minutes in a civics class, at least it would plant a seed. And then taking it to the colleges and the OSHR. One of the problems, I'm sorry to say, is that we're all old. And we're not in contact with what stimulates, the teenagers. One of the primary